Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Brazil-Canada Talks, How to Invest in the Brazilian Agriculture Sector, Opportunities and Regulatory Updates, organized in partnership with the Ccbc, Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canada, based in São Paulo, the Embassy of Brazil in Ottawa, and the Embassy of Canada in Brasilia, Global Affairs Canada, as well as Cescon Barrieu. I'm Carolina Albernas, CEO of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, and in Toronto, and I'll be your MC today. Just a few housekeeping rules. After the presentations, we'll host a roundtable discussion where your questions will be answered and integrated into the conversation. So please add your questions on the Q&A box located in the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to address all the points raised during the presentation. So don't be shy and make sure that you add your questions in the Q&A box. First, for those who are not familiar with the BCCC, we are a membership-based association that supports its members through information networking and advocacy. And for nearly 50 years, we've been building relationships between Brazil and Canada in investment, trade, best practices, and mutual growth and prosperity. Our relationships are public and private, featuring managing directors and decision makers from companies and institutions of all sizes. And our volunteer board of directors has expertise, knowledge, and connections that can only be found by being active members of the Brazil-Canada market. So if you're interested in learning more how the BCC can support your company, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. With a modern, efficient, sustainable, and competitive agriculture, Brazil has become one of the world's largest agricultural producers and exporters over the last 2 decades. Productivity gains, management efficiency, research innovation, and technological development have revolutionized the country's agribusiness sector. Brazilian agriculture production has been steadily rising over the last decades due to the intensive use of technology, machinery, equipment, and genetic improvement. And those factors have pushed up the productivity of farms, especially for commodities. In March 2021, the Brazilian government has approved a new legislation establishing the Fundo de Investimento das Cadeias Produtivas Agroindustriais, FIAGRO, or investment funds in agricultural productive chains. The proposal aims to increase both the scale and sustainability of agribusiness, which will require in turn a greater volume of resource for investment and the adoption of the best corporate governance practices in the sector. So today we'll hear from experts about this new framework and the potential for foreign investors looking to better understand the opportunities in the Brazilian agriculture sector. And after, as I mentioned, after the presentations, we'll host a roundtable discussions with our speakers to facilitate a more in-depth discussion on the subject. So we have a packed agenda for today. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Paulo de Castro Reis, Chief Officer for Institutional Relations and Business Affairs at the Ccbc, to say a few words. Paulo.
Thank you, Carolina. Hello, bonjour. It's a pleasure to be here as a partner with the BCCC, our sister chamber, and our common member, Cescon Barrieu, for this event on how to invest in the Brazilian agriculture sector. Brazil and Canada are international references in the agri-industry with constant investment, innovation, and technology. This event will talk about investment opportunities in this sector for Canadian companies aiming to do business in Brazil. We hope that this is just the first of many events organized to discuss such relevant content, and we expect to see you all again in the near future. I would like now to take this opportunity to invite the Ambassador of Brazil in Ottawa, Ambassador Pedro Borio, for his welcome remarks. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Paulo, my dear friend. Boa tarde a todos. Good afternoon to all of you. Bonjour à tous. It's a great pleasure for me to be here again. First, I want to thank the Chamber and the organizers, Carolina, my friend, for the superb job. You have been surpassing yourselves every time, putting together these great teams of panelists and focusing on the really important matters. Particularly happy to be here also today with Bonny Berger from the Embassy of Canada in Brasilia. And we have been doing things hand in hand for a long time, as those of you that follow the Chamber know. I'm very happy to see that we are going to have the true expert here today to talk to you about this subject, Dr. José Angelo Mazzillo, Júnior. And also, it's very refreshing to see that we are going to have Dr. Camargo Braga from Minas Gerais, Ariadne Caballero from São Paulo Ventures, Igor, Rego from the sponsor Cescon Barrieu. in sum, a very expressive group, and not to forget our own Paulo Márcio Araújo, the attaché here in Ottawa for Agricultural Affairs, who will be ready to stay in touch with all of you later on, those of you in Canada, to do the follow-up. This event today is particularly interesting for me because it shows that despite the huge success and the magnitude of the Brazilian agriculture in the last decades, it's the shining sector of the Brazilian economy, as most of you certainly know, but there is always room for improvement. So through the years, we realized that there were a few instruments that could be either perfected or could have some additions to. And the FIAGRO is a result of that. The FIAGRO is very important to note, is not something that came out just from the government machine. It's something that was approved in Congress, had the special commitment of Deputado Arnaldo Jardim from São Paulo, who worked together with the government. I should also remind you that the Minister of Agriculture in Brazil is a parliament veteran. She was president of the Agribusiness Parliamentarian Front. In some, why is this important? Why is it important to mention this? Because this is a very solid piece of legislation that was built skillfully to try to give extra flexibility and also safety for the foreign investor. Meaning, there were some doubts through the years, especially about the limits for the foreign participation, land ownership, or modalities of investment that were feasible this way or that way. The FIAGRO is a sort of a super modern umbrella that allows the investor to tailor the way he wants to do his particular operation or different operations, and establishes a very clear sort of safety net that, in my opinion, represents a tremendous improvement. This is a tool that still is in infancy. It has a lot to show, and it's very opportune that we discuss it today and we come back to it later on if necessary. So I wish you all a very fruitful discussion. I would like, as I always do, to invite you to remain in touch with us and with the consulates in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, with the chamber itself, as I said, with our agricultural section, to further explore the questions after the meeting. And I'm sure Minister of Agriculture, Dr. José Angelo himself, will remain available. We are also hopeful that very soon, with the restart of sort of normal life, we are going to have exchanges of visits. And one of the first that was in our agenda from last year would be of the Minister of Agriculture of Brazil to Canada. We hope also to see Canadian agricultural authorities in Brazil very soon. So thank you very much for the patience with these few words, and let's stay in touch. And very, very successful meeting for all of you. And again, Caroline and the chamber, thank you a lot.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us and to count on your partnership and all the partnership from the embassy as well, and Paulo in promoting agriculture sector between Brazil and Canada. And next, another champion of this partnership, I'd like to introduce Bonny Berger, Economic Counselor and Head of Commercial Section of the Embassy of Canada in Brasilia, to say a few words to welcome Bonny. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Carolina, and Paulo also for the organization of this important event. Thank you, Ambassador Borio, for your kind words. And indeed, we have a wonderful relationship between the Embassy of Canada in Brazil and the Embassy of Brazil in Canada. Paulo Araújo and I are frequently in touch with each other. So good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Really appreciate being here, and we're anxious to represent the Embassy of Canada as well as the Trade Commissioner Service of Canada based here in Brasilia. I'd also like to mention that Ambassador Jennifer May, who is our Ambassador of Canada to Brazil, sends her sincere regards and wishes us all a very successful event, which I know it will be. Some of you are probably aware that 2021 marks the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Canada and Brazil. It's an important milestone for us. And especially bearing this milestone in mind, we look forward to deepening even further our trade and investment ties. And this event is helping us to do that. Of course, we have significant education, science, innovation, and other ties, as well as our burgeoning two-way investment. And as Ambassador Borio alluded to, as we continue to address the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, our shared commitment to multilateralism, international cooperation, and of course, global economic recovery is more important than ever. As we are all aware, agriculture is a key driver of both the Brazilian and Canadian economies. It's essential for post-COVID-19 pandemic recovery. Brazil and Canada are continental countries with similar opportunities, similar challenges as well, concerning food production, agro-industrial products, sustainability of agricultural systems, and so on. And actually, in the context of agricultural sustainability, we were so pleased to see that Brazil's ABC program to promote agricultural sustainability has been built upon with the ABC Plus initiative launched last month by Brazil's Minister of Agriculture, Teresa Cristina, to whom Ambassador Borio alluded in terms of a potential visit to Canada. I'd certainly like to recognize Brazil's important contribution as well to the Ottawa Group on WTO reform. And actually, at the end of 2020, Canada's Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development, Mary Ng, announced that the Ottawa Group Trade and Health Initiative was presented to the WTO. So there's a ministerial meeting coming up shortly, and we'll be looking forward to the results of that, on which Brazil and Canada are both quite focused. So on this initiative, the Trade and Health Initiative, Canada and fellow Ottawa Group member nations, notably Brazil, are calling for further cooperation amongst all the World Trade Organization members to strengthen global supply chains, facilitate the flow of essential medicines and medical supplies, including vaccines. And in addition, though, to our government-to-government work, which is extremely important and on which we have a great partnership with Brazil, on the agribusiness side, we are delighted to learn about FIAGRO, a few tenets of which Ambassador Borio has mentioned, this new Brazilian fund dedicated to investment in the agri-food production chain, which is so key. On the subject of agriculture investment in Brazil, I'd like to give you a key example of a fruitful Canadian investment, which is Nutrien, that some of you may know, the largest fertilizer company in the world. Nutrien was formed in 2018 by a merger of Canadian firms Agrium and Potash Corp, and is now, as I mentioned, the largest agri-food inputs company in the world. And it's steadily advancing its footprint in Brazil, which both sides are very happy about. In 2019, Nutrien announced its starting US $1 billion in investment in Brazil, which despite the pandemic, is advancing well and even exceeding forecasts. Of course, the creation of FIAGRO is a positive step towards opening up Brazil's economy. And as I understand it, and I think the ambassador of Brazil has noted, FIAGRO will facilitate increased agribusiness investment in Brazil. So we're looking forward to that. Indeed, we're very pleased to see that FIAGRO's first public offer included a provision for social and environmental improvements to be made in leased farms. This is in line with Brazil's pledge, which many of you will have seen announced this week, at the COP26 conference in Glasgow to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. So Canada looks forward to continuing to cooperate with Brazil in both agribusiness and environment. Once more, I would like to thank you all so much for the opportunity to say a few words today, and I wish you an extremely productive event. Thank you so much to the organizers and to my colleagues at the Brazilian Embassy in Ottawa.
Thank you so much, Bonny, for all the information. It's always a pleasure to have you speaking at the event with all your knowledge into the Brazilian Canadian agriculture sector. So thank you again for being here. So next, I would like to invite José Angelo Mazzillo, Júnior, Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Policy at the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply, to present those new frameworks developed by the Ministry of Agriculture and what are the opportunities for investments in Brazil. So José Angelo, thank you for being here. It's stage is yours.
It's my pleasure, Carolina. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you, Ambassador and BCC, for this invitation. As you know, my name is José Angelo, and currently I am working for the Ministry of Agriculture. And before this, I worked for 27 years for Central Bank of Brazil, dealing with supervision and regulation of our financial system. Here in MAPA, my mission is to open our agribusiness to the private credit markets, meaning the banking system, capital markets, regarding both conventional and ESG finance. So I will share some slides with you. I'd like to apologize for the plain, the Spartan design of my slides, but the intention here is to share with you some remarks regarding this big picture I will provide you with regarding our financial markets we developed to the agribusiness sector. I think the first result of my work here in the Ministry of Agriculture is the enactment of two laws. The law we call the new agri-law, the law 13986 enacted last year, and the FIAGRO law enacted this year. And we are pursuing a market, a credit market with less market failures. This is what we are obsessively pursuing, to correct market failures in our credit markets. And of course, for agriculture, because this is my business here in the Brazilian government. We can say, after these two laws, that our credit markets for agriculture provide investors with transactional simplicity, transparency, and legal certainty. And we have some instruments. FIAGRO is one of them, but we have a specific note which is issued by the farmers and the agro industry. We called Rural Product Notes, or CPR. We have a specific asset-backed security, an ABS, which is called Agribusiness Receivable Certificate, CRA. And we have also the FIAGRO recently established, as I told you. We have in Brazil a robust financial infrastructure. All bonds are registered in financial market corporations authorized and supervised by Central Bank of Brazil. We have, as an example, our B3 is a huge financial market infrastructure which is well known worldwide. We have also in our financial infrastructure sophisticated securitizers, asset managers, and agri-fintechs, which is using and developing behavioral credit scoring. And we have also here in MAPA a comprehensive network which is available to potential investors absolutely free of charge. We can ask us if you don't have enough contacts here in our financial markets that deals with agribusiness, and we will be glad to share with you all of our contacts and try to customize some events, specific events for you, for your necessities. And we like also to reinforce, to highlight that CPR and CRA can be used by domestics and international investors and trade in international markets. Some figures for you. The need for working capital and investment capital is around $200 billion per year. So our agribusiness definitely has huge scale and huge necessities for funding. On the other hand, our CPR answers for only $20 billion for this amount of money that is needed by our agribusiness sector. And the evolution after the new agri-law was very dramatic because we had a stock of CPR around $3.5 billion, and in 14 months, this amount increased to almost $20 billion, 6 times the initial amount. Our CRA responds for $10 billion, and our FIAGRO investment fund in agribusiness was recently established, and it is operating under a provisional regulatory framework, and we don't have anyone issued yet. And I'd like to highlight also our sustainable agriculture bond issued since July of 2019 up to today, and this amount is over $10 billion. Let's talk about FIAGRO. The role is to complete the set of financial instruments available to investors. FIAGRO's typical assets will be financial assets like bonds, notes, CPR, securities as the CRA, and shares of investments funds, other FIAGROs, for example. Another typical asset of the FIAGRO is real estates, farms and rural enterprise. And I think, and another typical asset of FIAGRO is shares of agribusiness companies as well. So we can have a mix of these three kinds of assets in the FIAGRO assets. The shares can be subscribed with money or the assets related above. So if a farmer wants to acquire, purchase shares of FIAGRO, can do this using his or her own farm to do this. FIAGRO will be the liaison between urban and rural environment, providing mutual understanding, mutual comprehension about both realities that are apart, and especially in Brazil, a country with continental size. And we hope that this will bring more rationality regarding the many issues around agribusiness, especially in these ESG times. And I told you, the current status of FIAGRO is under transitional rules, and some of FIAGROs are being structured, and we will have some public offering. We had a couple of them during the last weeks, and there are a couple of more forecasted for the next weeks. Besides large, Brazil agri-financial markets can provide low climate risk level. We have in Brazil relatively steady climate, diversion production from soybean to silkworm cocoons. We have many kinds of producers from family farmers to big corporations, high level of returns, yields from 5% to 25% per year. We have many alternatives regarding ESG investments, and I'd like always to highlight that our ultimate goal is to take the private markets, private credit markets to the family farm in Brazil. This is, in fact, our most important, at least to me, goal here in the ministry. The green financial market perspectives for the Brazilian agribusiness, we have Brazilian agriculture has a comparative and competitive advantage, since on a well-managed farm, it's possible to get 3 crops per year, 2 of them with rainwater. This is inherently sustainable under an environmental and economic perspective. We call this in Brazil saving land effect. The output produced in such farms would need 3 times more land if these activities are run in temperate climate countries. So we have an inherent sustainable production in Brazil. Brazil should be, we are more and more prepared in global trading, since our agriculture supplies are sufficient to feed all of our population, and we have another 50% as a surplus, which we export. So we fully feed our population of 220 million inhabitants, and our surplus can fully feed 110 million inhabitants as well. And our output in agriculture is increasing, so we need and we are over time more prepared to trade globally, and this is important to our country. We know how to trade globally, and we are improved this ability. Our agricultural activity can increase substantially its output with no deforestation at all. And we will achieve this not only with higher levels of productivity, but also expanding our crop areas on degraded pastures, meaning that, in fact, we can expand our agriculture with no deforestation at all. Brazil has around 66 million hectares used as cropland. It's 8% of our territory, and 180 million hectares used as grazing land, something around 21% of our territory, and last 64% as native biomes. So we are definitely a green country, and we don't need to chopping down any tree to increase our agriculture output production. And we have already recovered 60 million of hectares of pastures. So we are working on this effectively. And we are very confident that we can help the mitigation of the risk of new pandemics, especially by providing global markets with safe animal protein. In fact, Brazil would not be a global leader in the export of beef, poultry, and pork to more than 150 countries if we did not have good health standards. Regarding our current legal institutional framework, I'd like to highlight that we have a very modern and strict environmental legislation as established in our forestry code, which impose to all farmers to keep forestry reserves within their lands from 20% to 80%, depending on the biome. For example, if you have a farm in the Amazon biome, you have to constitute 80% of your farm as a legal reserve to preserve the environment. We have a very scientific-based environmental friendly protocols in place in Brazil. We can and these provide the investors with many taxonomies for agriculture and livestock. It's important to say that the Ministry of Agriculture and the Climate Bonds Initiative has a memorandum of understanding by which we are boosting the green finance in Brazil. With this very purpose, we have launched other initiatives with the Climate Bonds Initiative. We have a survey directed to the investors, an investment plan in ESG agribusiness in Brazil. We have criteria developed specifically for livestock and many other products regarding this effort we have to promote, to enhance our sustainable finance for our agribusiness. Besides, we have many protocols developed by the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa, and we can highlight some of them, like the crop livestock forest integration system, the biological nitrogen fixation, the zero carbon livestock food security protocols, among others. And by the way, we have in Brazil 17 million hectares using the crop livestock forest integration system, which provides this saving land effect, besides others such as the crop rotation techniques, which provides also the same effect. The next steps, I think the first and the most important goal for the government, is to make our forestry code fully effective. The second one is to understand the domestic and foreign investors' needs. So it's important for you that are interested in investing in Brazil that get some contact with us. You can answer this survey on the CBI website. We need to know your necessities because we can tailor-make the solution for you, whatever it is. We have to still develop private protocols to certify the compliance with the Brazilian forest code. We have to promote the transition sustainable finance to those farmers that need to be fully compliant with the best sustainable practice. We need to have a special effort regarding the governance here in Brazil. And finally, we have to take advantage of the in-place infrastructure, to take advantage of the existing protocols, bringing together the investors, the certifying entities, the second-part opinions, the third-part opinions, and of course the Brazilian farmers. And we are here to help you. And here is our contact. Please do this if you are interested in investing in our agribusiness. Thank you very much, Carolina.
Thank you so much, José Angelo, for this for the presentation, for being here with us as well. And I think it would be very interesting if you can share the link of the CBI survey. We will be happy to forward it to the registrants and the attendees of this event and have it here with us with potential investors as well. And I think it's a great initiative, right? Like for MAPA and CBI to showcase how committed Brazil is on the ESG practices in agriculture and sustainable practices as well. So thank you so much. And we will have a little bit more from José Angelo during the roundtable later today after the presentations. So thank you so much for being here. Next, I would like to invite now Ariadne Caballero, partner at SP Ventures, to present on trends and opportunities for foreign investors. Ariadne, thanks for being here. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you very much for having me, guys. And thank you, José Angelo, as well for that fantastic presentation. Definitely my job is way more easy. Rebeca is going to help me with the presentation. Rebeca, could you please?
Yes, I'm opening here. Just a second.
Thank you. So I'm a partner at SP Ventures. We are at this time the largest agritech VC fund, probably focused in agribusiness in Latin America. A very quick intro about me. I've been working with agribusiness for more than 12 years. I've been with SP Ventures for the last two years, and I'm responsible today for the investments in agritech in Brazil and Latin America. So I'm going to try to break our talk a little bit to speak about our fund and the opportunities in the region. So we started the firm back in 2007. We were not focused on ag. We started as a generalist fund. We invested in 8 companies in the beginning, and 50% of that portfolio, the previous one, Rebecca, please.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So we invested in 8 companies, and actually 50% of that portfolio was already in agribusiness. We definitely identified that with the huge potential of agribusiness in the region, it makes sense that there was a BC fund totally focused on BC, on agriculture. And for us, we perceived that it was the best financial return and purpose-driven investments in the area of venture capital, specifically in the region. We raised our second fund back in 2014. It was a little bit over $40 million, and we invested in around 20 companies. 80% of those were already in the agritech space. And today we have a new fund of $50 million that it was raised during the pandemic. And we are actively doing investments in the last years. We already did investments in around 10 companies. One of those companies from Canada, Berger, that it just really makes sense. All our investments are impact investments. And we analyze all the companies always through the impact and through the growth potential. It is easier sometimes, to say that agriculture, it is always related to ESG. So even though we are looking at this time, all this energy around ESG, agriculture in Brazil has always been one thing at the time. If you could share the next one, please. So agribusiness not necessarily included in the financial service and introduced in the previous presentation with all the services, right? Such as insurance, credit, just only the agribusiness value chain. It is really the big business in Brazil. It represents around 24 to 25% of the quarter for GDP. And not only that, but by far is definitely one of the sectors with the most competitive on a global scale, right? We are the #1 exporter of food in the world, agribusiness exporter, and we are the number 2 food producer, and we are definitely on the rise, hopefully, to overtake the United States as the largest food producer in the planet in the upcoming years. But like everybody says, right, with great power comes also great responsibilities. And Brazil is one of the top countries that has been working directly to develop top-notch technology to really transform the agriculture in a much more sustainable and transparent chain. And there is a huge effort from growers, from tech companies to really bring the best technologies into the field and really connect directly to the consumers, which has been an enormous priority after COVID. So the Sustainable Agriculture Investment Roadmap explains that actually the introduction of new technologies dedicated policies specifically in Brazil, it has definitely contributed to Brazil competitiveness, right? The constant development and the application of new technologies has been always a part of the way that agribusiness has been developing in Brazil. We have a huge and mainly to the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation in BRAPA. They have enabled the efficient and sustainable use of vast resources, right? And the priority specifically for all the companies that are appearing in the sector, it's that how do we develop a much more sustainable agriculture? How do we give the transparency and how do we connect specifically to the growers, to the consumers, sorry. The next one, please. So one thing that we always tell investors, and specifically coming from you, and this has been resonating every time more. It's the next one, please. During the COVID, the resilient aspect of agritech as an asset class, which was always being snubbed by many venture investors, it's definitely changing, right? If we identify all the information that we are receiving from all these companies, from all these startups, now we have the possibility to de-risk every time much more the system of agriculture. And definitely the agritech has become much more valuable in the last years, especially in these times of post-COVID, let's say. And if we see other examples, right? In 2015 and 2016, previous to COVID, we had in Brazil a worst economic depression in a generation. And GDP shrank by more than 7% over a 2-year process. And what is really interesting is the agriculture value really continued to prosper and perform, even in those years which there was a lot of crisis. And with the latest COVID, we saw a lot of very, very similarities in this crisis. And the reasons are very well known to everybody. The industry does not necessarily depend on domestic market for consumption. And so when the domestic market slumps, the industry really does not suffer as much. And last but not least, but perhaps much more important, is the agribusiness groups in the region. They have been able to perform a very strong advocacy, right? Associations and really protect themselves from local and political interference in this industry. And they're just taking the advantages that the governmental policies are developing at this time. The next one, please. Right. So one of the topics that José talked in the previous talk was about it was the tropical agritech as a thrive ecosystem. Brazil is very unique, and there are specifically 3 major regions in the world. There is Latin America, the center, Brazil, all through to Argentina. And there is the sub-Saharan Africa, and there is the South Asia, right? So we tend to target specifically technologies that are developed locally. And that is kind of like the difference of the technology that is developed locally. And we have seen many companies trying to enter Brazil, and they have suffered because there are many differences. In tropical agriculture, we have very characteristics that are different. And we have created a barrier from other companies to really enter into the ecosystem, not because they don't come with very top-notch technology. It's because there are specifically characteristics in the region that they need to rethink the way that they are working with the growers. They have to rethink the climate that it's evolving all the time. So when we see technologies coming specifically from local startups, this is where our differences come specifically into place. So it is a completely different ballgame, right? We have a very different infrastructure. The farm sizes are radically different, much more larger in terms of sizes. We have a very different human capital, right? Those who are working in those farms are at this time ready to adopt and disseminate technologies. Everybody is using WhatsApp in the farm, which is fantastic because they use it as a tool for training, they use it as a tool for interchanging information. And this is kind of like differentiators from other regions. And something that is important is our bet in local knowledge to support the entrepreneurs and also to understand when other investors are coming from. It is important to speak to other investors in the region to really understand what's happening in the region and what are kind of like the most relevant bets that are around. Next one, please, Carol. So when we look at the ecosystem specifically in Brazil, I can tell you, our team has been invited to Israel, to St. Louis. We've been traveling all around the world. And what we're seeing specifically in Brazil is a very developed and probably the most decentralized agritech movement in the world. We have around 5 major agritech hubs. Each one is deeply connected to the regions. So there are agribusiness and growers and farmers and leading universities specifically. There's a lot of financial capital that has started to flow towards the region and towards specifically some companies that are adopting different technology. Next one, please. So this is another picture of the ecosystem that is happening in the region. I'm not going to repeat a lot, but we have seen a lot of the agritech's activity. And there's a lot of investors flowing in, either from corporations that are already working in agribusiness, or now new other instruments are specifically oriented towards the individuals, right? Like the FIAGRO, which I'm going to try to explain a little bit later. Next one, please. So specifically on our fund, this is the way that we see the ecosystem, right? In terms of investment, we map out specifically the categories and the regions between the vegetable and the grain vertical, which is important, between the animal protein vertical. And we are trying to break out what are the technologies that are being leveraged in each one of these verticals. It's either biotech science or it's digital. We break up absolutely where are the activities that are taking place. And something that is important to say from the investments in agriculture in Brazil is that we have seen an enormous acceleration on the ecosystem from 6 years ago, for example. Today, most of the companies that are developing solutions are much more broader. They're trying to tackle the agribusiness in a much more holistic way. We are seeing a lot of agri-fintechs appear in the space. The agri-tech fintech, for example, it was a new term 2 years ago, and today we're seeing many new entrances, specifically trying to tackle the credit system that we have in the agriculture in Brazil. And that is important because these are companies that are trying to really make a much more transparent system and bring either a green investment or other type of investments directly into an industry that is growing a lot. The next one, please, Carol. Rebeca, sorry. So when we see from the other side and from the investor side, let's say, there are many opportunities. And this is, again, another figure from the report of Sustainable Agriculture in Brazil. And one of the first instruments that we're seeing flowing, and every time more our investors are asking, is the FIAGRO, right? FIAGRO, at the end of the day, it was already mentioned, it's still a very new instrument. It's an instrument that it was created in March 2021. So we are still seeing a lot of the potential. It's still early to tell how important it is, but definitely there's a lot of promising in the instrument. And if we see the FIAGRO, at the end of the day, it's a real estate agribusiness fund that increases the agricultural and livestock raising access to financial resources, right? So it's something that is going to be deeply, deeply connected to the information flowing directly into the growers and the risk in this information for the investors, making it much more easier to invest in those companies or those those growers that are following the protocols, the ESG protocols, and investors that really want to make their investment value and grow specifically in regions which are, let's say, green regions and are totally following all the protocols from ESG. So the main feature of FIAGRO this time is that the funds that are raised are investors in the agribusiness sector and the agri-industrial protocol chain, right? This is deeply connected to other type of funds specifically like SP Ventures. We are seeing a lot of synergies specifically with VC funds, with private equity funds, that we are already tapping a lot of opportunities into that. So with that, guys, I'm gonna leave a space for some questions or probably to the next presenter. We can talk a little bit more at the end of the conversations.
Thank you, Ariadne, for the presentation. It's really impressive to see the movement that's happening in Brazil in terms of ag techs and the evolution of the investment into technology and consequently into the agriculture sector. So thank you for the presentation. I would like to invite now our next speaker, that's Igor Rego, partner at Cescon Barrieu, who present on legal requirements and regulatory updates. So he's gonna go a little bit deeper on then how to invest in Brazil. And then after that, we'll have presentation from Carlos Braga. So now Igor, with you. So thank you for being here. And again, for everyone that's watching us here today, don't forget to add your questions into the Q&A box. And Rebeca will have a very interesting conversation with the speakers after the presentations are over. So thank you, Igor. The stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Many thanks, Carolina. I'm Igor from Cescon Barrieu. As my purpose here is to talk a little bit deeper about FIAGRO. As everyone has already talked a little bit about FIAGRO, not sure if I have a lot of content to talk with you guys, but I will try to go a little bit deeper in this subject. So let me try to, I have some highlights here, so let me try to, great. So I will give you a little bit of a historical context, because when you look at the efforts of the Brazilian government to create new tools in order to promote the finance of the agribusiness sector, it looks like very much with the same efforts that the Brazilian government did in the 90s with the real estate sector. Actually, the FIAGRO law is the same law as the real estate investment fund law. So as you can see, in the 90s, with the real estate sector, the Brazilian government enacted the law 8668 in 93 in order to create the real estate investment fund, and the law 9514 in 97 in order to create the real estate financial system. And recently, in the last year, it was enacted the agribusiness law, with the agribusiness law, was created new types of securities, and it has also broadened the possibilities to issue some kind of securities that already existed. For example, the rural products certificate. And nowadays, for instance, in the last month, with a presidential decree, you can actually issue a rural product certificate in order to represent efforts of any enterprise to promote environmental to better promote the environment. And as has already told by the people who speak it here, in this year, last March, it was enacted the FIAGRO law. So what is a FIAGRO? FIAGRO is an investment fund organized as an open-ended condominium or a closed-ended condominium. This is very important. It shall be administered by a financial institution duly registered with CVM. Why this is important? It's because financial institutions have to comply with ESG protocols. So a FIAGRO is a vehicle which is already prepared to be a vehicle that is in compliance with ESG aspects. It was regulated by the Brazilian and Exchange Commission by the resolution number 39. And this resolution established basically three types of FIAGRO: the private equity FIAGRO, the credit rights FIAGRO, and the rural real estate FIAGRO. And what we have seen is that a credit rights FIAGRO is it has been it has been the market have paid a special attention to credit rights FIAGRO because the rural sector in Brazil, the agribusiness sector in Brazil, needs a lot of financial resources in order to finance the harvests. And the market has also paid a lot of attention to rural real estate FIAGRO. And we think that regarding to private equity FIAGRO, we have already other kinds of investment funds, as for example, private equity investment fund that can be used in order to invest in the agribusiness sector here in Brazil. So according to the regulation, we have Fiagro can be categorized as as a types regarding the target investor and the types of investments to be carried out. As I said, we have a private equity Fiagro, which invests in private equity firms, and creative rights Fiagro, which invests in creative rights, and rural real estate Fiagro, which invests in rural real estate. And as it has been mentioned, we have a very broad language in the law that created Fiagro. So the market here in Brazil use it to say that is a kind of hedge fund of the agribusiness sector, because it can invest in rural real estate. It can invest in have a stake in enterprises of any kind of enterprise of the agribusiness chain, and it can invest in financial assets and securities issued by any person or vehicle of the agribusiness chain. For example, as I said, CPRs, rural product certificates, and creative rights, rural creative rights certificates. And it can also invest in agribusiness creative rights, any kind of creative rights arising from the agribusiness sector, and any kind of creative rights arising for rural real estates. So Fiagro, it's a very new vehicle that has been created in Brazil, and I think that it will contribute to enlarge the investments here in Brazil. And I thank you everyone for the participation in this webinar.
Thank you, Igor. Thank you for clarifying a few of the points. So next, and Igor will be part of the roundtable as well after the discussion. So next, let me just, I would like now to invite Carlos de Camargo Penteado Braga, who is a professor at Fundação Dom Cabral and also vice chairman of the Development Bank of Minas Gerais, to talk a little bit about trends and opportunities, give a bit of an overview of the sector as well. So Carlos, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. And the stage is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here once more, interacting with the Canadian business community. As I used to say, one of the more sophisticated community doing business abroad. And of course, today is a day to talk about Brazil, opportunities. I will bring my slides, just a second, for us to explore a bit of those opportunities. Let me see, the presentation is here. No, quickly, Carolina already mentioned, I'm the vice chairman of Minas Gerais State, which is one of the big agricultural states in Brazil. I'll talk quickly about that. Financing professor, but a banker by background, a private equity manager also for some years. And my idea should be as practical as possible, give you guys a view about what's going on in Brazil. Let's go for it. Okay, back to the basics. Why we are discussing Brazil, why with so many noise about Brazil, all in the international press, why people continue to look for Brazil as an alternative, why Brazil continues to be a recipient of 15 to 20% of emerging market flows, because the opportunity is huge. I think that's the bottom line. If you see by all dimensions, the country is one of the 5th largest in terms of country area. It has one of the biggest GDPs above $1 trillion, has the 6th largest population, 200 million people, which makes it a very important consumer market for several consumer goods, and specifically in the agricultural sector, together with Russia, US is a major exporter in several categories: soybean, sugarcane, coffee producer, beef exporter, corn exporter, chicken meat exporter. It is the #1 worldwide, steel producer #1. All those numbers make an interesting intersection. If you see countries with this type of large area, this type of population above 150, and an economy above 1 trillion, you're only going to find 3 countries with this type of scale. Would be Brazil, US, and China. That's the reason that we are here. We are discussing entry strategies and how to do business in Brazil, especially in the agricultural sector, which really is not a single one. Brazil, because of its continental situation, they have more than one biome. We have the 5 biomes, the famous Amazon, which is the green area here by itself, is 49% of Brazil. We have the Pampa, we have the Pantanal, 2%, 1%, the Atlantic Forest, the Caatinga, the Cerrado, and most of the agricultural activities are far from the Amazon, are much more in the southeast area. We are going to see it, but just to give an idea about complexity, those biomes, they have different styles. If you see that, if you think Brazil, eventually I know that we have sophisticated investors here. If you think Brazil is basically Amazon, everything is green, I think it is understandable, but it's much more complex than that. We have Atlantic Forest that is reminds a bit of the mid-mild temperature. We have the Pantanal, that's a biome by itself, a world-scale biome, with a food plain of in the center of Brazil. We have the Pampa, which much more like Argentina, where you can have cattle production and also soy production, and we have almost a desertic area called the Caatinga. In order to deal with all those biomes, the challenge was there since the beginning. We needed to find ways of developing proprietary technology, proprietary research to deal with those difficult biomes. The Central West, 50 years ago, around 73, when famous Embrapa, which is our center of technology, the NASA, like the US NASA, is our NASA for agriculture, was created in 73. By now, we have more than 2,000 researchers distributed around the country, just analyzing ways of improving productivity, improving the way of working the Brazilian soil, and this network that also interacts with several public institutions put Brazil in the forefront of technology when we talk about agriculture. It's world-class research to make tropical cultures to flourish in the Brazilian market. You can see those dramatic curves, how evolution of grain production in the same, almost in the same planting area. You can see the use of fertilizers, and basically the whole idea that you can grow using existing territory with land improvements, and got to the point of having 2 temporary crops in the same year, which was one of the main reasons of this dramatic improvement of production in the past 15 to 20 years. And that goes with the environmental concerns. We are in the week of Glasgow, COP26, everybody concerned. I think we need to understand that Brazil does have a well-considered, well-regarded law. We may discuss if the law is being implemented as it should. But the Brazilian law the Brazilian Environmental Code was approved in 2012 after a long debate establishing how much of legal reserve was supposed to have in each biome of Brazil. Of course, the Amazon is the one to be more preserved. 80% of the Amazon biome should be preserved as legal reserve. 35% in the Cerrado, close to the Pantanal that we just mentioned, and the other biomes, 20%. That shows that things are organized, the law is there. And for surprise of lots of people, despite of all this expansion, all this research, all these land improvements, agriculture by itself does not exceed 7.8% of the Brazilian territory. Pastures for cattle, 21%, and planted forests, pulp and paper giants in Brazil, they occupy 1.2%. The total area dedicated to agriculture, including all those activities, is 30%. And the native vegetation occupies 66%. Then if you see this map, just looking for the green, in which is the area that is of agricultural use, you see the dramatic difference from what we can see in Europe and what we can see in the US, where the vegetation is almost gone. And Brazil preserves an area that is equal to 43 countries in Europe, just to give you the sense of scale. Then I think this is always important to keep in mind. And the law is there, let's enforce it and keep it Brazil with its natural vocation to be an environmental powerhouse. But let's go for the business. Since we are talking about business, Brazil is growing, agricultural powers. We can see that 40 years of continuous growth, expansion in all industries, 5 times in grains, 4 times in sugarcane, pork 3 times, beef, chicken. Is a tremendous, almost exponential growth in the past 40 years. Many thanks for the Embrapa research and by the entrepreneurship of Brazilian agricultural sector, some finance from the government that we will speak in a minute, and specifically in the last 30 years, this tremendous growth in animal protein, putting Brazil in the forefront as #1 producer in the world. All the numbers, scale, world class, growing, and continues to grow. If we go for diversification, this is very interesting. We have several sorts of cultures spread all over Brazil, most of them on a world-scale production level, with more than 1 million tons per year, which makes it world scale. Then, in addition to soy, in addition to cotton, in addition to sugarcane, you're going to find world scale for bananas, pineapple, fruits in general. In the north, we have the famous açaí and the palm oil done on a sustainable way. And agribusiness also has not only diversified activity across the country, but is a major employer, responsible agribusiness as a whole for almost 20% of the jobs in Brazil, specifically 8 million people in the countryside. Then it has a tremendous social impact to keep the business in Brazil growing on a healthy way with best practices in the business. That goes along with digital transformation. Brazil is going again and keeping in the forefront, also in using information technology for the agribusiness, real-time data, soil, seeds, crops, and development. Basically, the whole idea is to rationalize the use of inputs, to even take more advantage from land transformation, reducing farming costs, of course, environmental conservation, using several Internet of Things, monitoring sensors, artificial intelligence, lots of drones. Drones are key to keep productivity going up. And that's a successful story. Brazil also with startups just dedicated to this business, growing, tremendous hub for startup agritechs, as we call. We keep our position to be world's farmlands. We are one of the farms of the world, exporting 40 agricultural products. In 2018, we had 5.2 share in the world agricultural exports, just behind the European Union and United States. And almost every country of the world is a Brazil customers. The idea that this will continue to happen, we will continue to grow. Yet it is expected that until 2030, we will grow something around 25–26% in this production, and increasing our market share and consolidating Brazil's position as world's farmland. Business opportunities, since you know the market is big, opportunities are there. We need to understand a bit of how this business is financed in Brazil, excluding bank. We have several sources of financing to make this business happen. Suppliers, they do provide terms of payments to allow the crop to be executed, to be planted. Distributors also have a key role in Brazil, mainly multinationals acting, investing in the distribution sides. Equity, sometimes just pure equity. People, for instance, in buying farms, they very much is an equity-based type of business. Co-ops in Brazil are very important. We have specific agricultural co-ops or credit co-ops, which are well spread in Brazil. Right now, something around 12% of the credit market in Brazil is related, associated to co-ops, and most of it's 80% probably dedicated to agriculture traders, traditional traders acting in Brazil, sugar traders, soy traders, and the industry itself also financing its own business. Then we have several, depending a little bit of the type of crop, the type of product. You may have a bit more of one specific. Sugarcane, for instance, is very much dedicated to the co-op financing, depends a little bit, coffee as well. But more recent, that may be an opportunity for you if you'd like to some way investing in this outside of Brazil in this business. You can choose to invest through green bonds. Brazilian green bond market is booming, is growing. We came in few years from $500 million issuance to $9 billion. We have 30% of Latin American markets. We have opportunities for you to invest in Brazil, buying green bonds associated to the forestry business, bioenergy, agriculture, livestock, food industry, and sometimes you can buy bonds from financial institutions that will own land to the sector. But land transformation, land use associated to gain more productivity in the existing lands is the key, especially, for instance, in the paper and pulp, where you have lots of investments, green bonds associated to it. Then that's a very interesting market that you can follow close. The numbers are there, 6 billion for forestry, 800 million for bioenergy, 500 million. Carlos, and why you call these green bonds? Because they follow ESG parameters. When they are doing, for instance, forestry, it is to make sure that the money is used to make better use, more productivity out of existing forestry. Bioenergy, very much the cogeneration, using the bagasse to do cogeneration of bioenergy. Biomass is key topic for green bonds from the sugarcane business. Livestock, we need to trace, we need to improve the way of making sure that all the cattle in Brazil is not associated to deforestation from the Amazon. That's the area that probably is closer to the Amazon in terms of potential deforestation, and you need to track that. And the key protein makers are very much active on this business, and they use green bonds to finance their initiatives. and food production as in general, looking for reduction of greenhouse gases and energy efficiency, all those interesting opportunities to buy bonds. But eventually you would like to buy stocks. If you'd like to buy stocks, unfortunately, Brazil does not have still big representation in the stock exchange, but you do have a good group of companies. You have 28 agribusiness companies listed in the Brazilian stock exchange that you can buy it from abroad, no problem. You can buy stocks in Brazil using a vehicle, a fund, or buy straight from the B3. The top ones would be the protein GBS, Cosan from the sugarcane business, BRF from food production, Mafrig, probably the largest hamburger producer in the world. They all exceed 10 billion reais. That would be like $2 billion valuations. But you also have several others that are large scale, like the paper pulp producers like Suzano Klabin. You have Raizen, which is very big in the sugarcane business. You have people investing, producing rice, sugar, pasta from wheat. Then plenty of opportunities. You buy stocks with world-class governance, and you may have a taste of having a Brazilian exposure. As I promised, I had a Fiagro slide, but I decided to take it out because it is well covered. I just give you an example about our bank, BDMG, which is the Development Bank of Minas Gerais. It's a sub-sovereign bank in Brazil. The most famous sovereign bank in Brazil, development bank, is BNDES. BDMG follow along with a regional scope dedicated to the state of Minas Gerais. I will just show the state of Minas Gerais figures. Minas Gerais figures large as a state is the size is larger than France or Germany, almost now 2021 to 20 million people, 800 municipalities, is a big exporter of coffee, gold, soy, beef. Reason why it is a key player in the agricultural sector in Brazil is a well-spread state. We have almost two states. One is like a rich state, is the southeast area of the state, but we have a very poor area close to the Caatinga, which is our desertic side of Brazil. Reason why we have, of course, inequality. BDMG as a development bank is working hard to make this reduce. We have production of all sorts of agri products. We have coffee, soy, beans, banana, tomato, but livestock has important piece. And coffee is the most important state for coffee, the biggest producer of coffee, and also consider world-class quality, competing directly with Colombia in terms of quality. Big state, BDMG, works across the state with focus in the more poor areas, in the more poor municipalities. That was first quarter numbers. Along the year, the whole year, we disbursed close to 2.5 billion, $500 million per year is our disbursements across the states, 300 municipalities, clients across all the states. We have decided to make a strategy that would be aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, as it should be. I think we should have a common north to all financing activities around the world nowadays. Our strategy focus very much in be considered and recognized as a specialist for Minas Gerais, to have goals associated to SDGs, to make the difference, as not only creating jobs, but jobs that do matter, that would have positive externalities. In order to do so, we are basically aligning disbursements to SDG goals. We have disbursed until mid-year 50% of our loans associated to the ODS, as we say in Brazil, SDGs, as we say abroad. Economic recovery, urbanization, job creation, renewable energy, transportation, sanitation, all those key elements of the SDGs. Agribusiness has a special place in the bank strategy. We do have lots of investments in irrigation, forest production, and of course, reforestation. But the key business is the coffee. We are a key player. We are not only low lending from our own resources, but the federal government gave us this special fund called Fund Café to finance coffee. If you'd like to invest in coffee in Brazil, especially in Minas Gerais, the best in the world. Sorry for Colombia, it's the second best, Brazil is the best. And of course, Colombia, Minas Gerais, the south of Minas Gerais is well recognized. Starbucks, all the international players are working there. If you'd like to have investments there, you should look for BDMG. Of course, all the disbursements that we do are related to measurements. We need to show that the money that's being spent is item by item. We can show that it's provoking positive impact. Why? Because in addition to be part of our strategy, it's something required by our funding providers. Our funding providers are mostly 70%, 75%. Almost, we raised $500 million from abroad for international institutions. They are all guided by SDGs. And of course, we are a last mile bank. You can be sitting someplace in the world, in France or Germany, but we need banks like BDMG that will go straight to the clients. And that last mile approach really makes a difference. And we need to prove that we are meeting whatever was required in terms of sustainability with our counterparties, IDB, European Investment Bank, FMO, KfW from Germany, very important players that are supporting Brazilian sustainable growth. And of course, that was a result of good governance structure, combination of young management and seasoned officers. After this work that we put together 3 years ago, we are very proud to be recognized as the best social economic impact bank in Brazil, with special dedication to agriculture because of the natural vocation of the states. I finish now. I hope you guys have enjoyed and that we can go for the debate shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for all these incredible numbers and the presentation. So I think that now it's time for us to start that discussion that we've been promising. So I'd like to invite Rebeca, and also like to invite all the other panelists, so José, Angelo, Ariadne, and Igor, if you can turn your cameras on, and to start the roundtable. So Rebeca, the stage is yours. It's your show now.
Thank you, Carolina. Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you to discuss with these great speakers and the selected audience, and to talk about a matter so important in Brazil as the agribusiness sector, discussing the opportunities of investing in this sector. Thank you all for the nice presentations. I think that our theme is very relevant here, as we could see by the visit of the president of COP26 in Brazil. I don't know if you are all aware of that, but the president of COP went to Brazil on August of this year, and he went to Embrapa Cerrado to be presented to the integration of crops, livestock, and forest system of integration. And I was trying here to find the video, but I was not able. But he said something in the lines of, the world needs to see that, meaning that we are doing a lot of things here in Brazil. We developed a lot of sustainable practice. We conserve a lot of areas in the rural real estate properties, and the world is not aware of that. They are not seeing that. And that's why I think it's so important here, what we are doing that here, that because we are making sure that all the great practice in agriculture and in livestock are being, that are already great, and but still unknown by part of the world, are being noticed here. So first of all, thank you for everyone to join us and to speak about these great things. I took a lot of notes here after hearing the presentations, and I will not shy to make my questions here for everyone. First of all, I think I will address some question to José Angelo. My question is how it's possible to increase crops in Brazil or to increase livestock without making use of areas with native vegetation. And here my question is the technology can be helpful in that, how it will works, please.
I think we have two answers. The answer in two parts. The first one is productivity. Science and technology will improve the productivity of the rural production of Brazil. So we produce 55, I don't know the name in English, sacas. Is it bag? How can I say it?
I think it can be bags.
Bags,
right?
okay. We have the productivity of 55 bags per hectare regarding soybean. This is a national average of productivity. And on the other hand, we have farms in Brazil that produces more than 100 bags per hectare of soybean. So using technology, new technology, and science. So this is how can I say, a vertical improvement of our rural production in Brazil, and we, of course, we bet a lot on this, and this is the tradition of our agriculture since we decided to do so with the creation of Embrapa. And the second one, Rebeca, is to use the degraded pasture areas and convert them into crop area. So we will do these two movements, and I can say that at the limit we can enhance our production without chopping down any tree and recovery natural biome, because our livestock area, our natural and pasture and grazelands are corresponds to 20%, 21% of our territory, and our cropland is about 80%. So we can use part of these grazelands to crop, and so we don't have the need to more deforestation in Brazil. I think I answered your question. If not, please, I can.
No, you proper answered the question. Thank you for the answer. And I will add something, because I think we had a lot of services provided by the nature that are very important to the crops and to livestock also. So it's a goal for all the providers, for farmers, to preserve the environment and to keep gaining from these natural services provided. Thank you. Ariadne, the next one, I think will be with you. You talked a lot about opportunities, and I would like to question if what do you see as the future of agriculture in Brazil with this new investment that you said in your presentation?
Rebecca, first, thank you for sharing the panel with everybody. What we see is these investments are definitely very important for us to maintain or position as leaders, specifically in agribusiness, right? But there are so many opportunities. José Angelo just pointed out the possibility of increasing productivity. Carlos also pointed out the possibility of exploring different areas in different regions. I think everybody shared a little bit about the possibilities of increasing the potential of credit or changing the credit in the system. So these new ways of investment, at the end of the day, they materialize in better technologies, in more productivity, but also a connection into the world, into have a much more transparency into what is real happening in Brazil. Much more, there are definitely mistakes that have been done for a minor part of the population in agribusiness, but this is just a minor percentage of what is really happening in the agribusiness in Brazil. So once we combine technology with transparency, with information, and we open it to the world, it's definitely going to be a game changer for the agribusiness in Brazil.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ariadne, and I think it's very aligned with the ESG concept and metrics that we are hearing from the world, the rest of the world. Moving forward, Carlos Braga, I think the next one it will be with you. I take a lot of pay attention in your presentation, and I was curious about which one were the biggest challenges faced during this process of integration of the ODS of the United Nations with the bank investment goals. How do you link these two positions, and what were the challenges presented for you?
As always in life, tough choices. You need to take choices. Sometimes people would call you, would like to finance this very big project here in the Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, of this auto part business. And then we always would see, are we the right player? That can be done by commercial banks. What is our vocation? We should finance and create jobs. Not necessarily. We need to go beyond creating jobs. The whole idea behind development banks until very recently, that our main function in life was to create jobs, whatever jobs. And life changed. Now we need to think about externalities. We need to look beyond, probably much more useful to my states, creating small and medium-sized financing small, medium-sized enterprises, supporting small cooperatives, not going for the giants that eventually may call us looking for cheap financing. And that was the ability of saying no, to choose the right fights, to choose the right projects. And of course, by doing so, taking a bit more risk, because we would go for not obvious, almost like startups, small players, helping them with long-term funding to go for the right path. And that's probably the challenge, the ability of saying no, making the right choices, be persistent with a long-term view, looking beyond short-term goals to making something nice that we create so much jobs. We need to bring quality jobs to the quality business that are sustainable for the state, for the country, and for the world.
Thank you. And regarding this ESG path, the clients of the bank from the agriculture sector are aware from the ESG metrics, or is something new for them? How is your impression of that in that?
Yeah, we are helping, as we should be, on advising them how to follow the path. It's very easy. I give you the money and you should provide me those reports. We need to support them. We do initiatives in Brazil with the local industry federation, just to not only give money, but to give financial education for the sectors in general. Companies that are with $1 million revenues per year, they do need support. They do need, must be for free. We incentivize women entrepreneurs across the country, across the Minas Gerais. And we actually give, like nowadays in the marketplace, instead of a cashback, we give a special rates if the guy follow through. If he follows the sustainability parameters, he will pay less then a commercial banking line. In this way, we not only speak about it, but we walk, then talk. And that's been our working, of course, with our fellow multilaterals from around the world, bringing consulting companies to have offices in Minas Gerais to support us in these ventures. It is, as they say, a journey. We need to kick off someplace. We kick off this journey in Minas Gerais, reason why we were awarded, but the award is just one detail. Most important, we have feedback from our customers, our clients, that we are helping them to go through the... Remember that we just came from a pandemic crisis.
Yes.
It was the worst crisis of my lifetime as a business person. And we were there, we tripled our disbursements during the crisis because we knew that was the right thing to do. And I think that's the motivation. For the first time in my long career, the financing sector is actually part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I'm very proud at this stage of my career at Banco de Minas Gerais, Desenvolvimento de Minas Gerais, to have to give with my colleagues the contribution to put those things in the right track.
Thank you. It's a beautiful journey. I agree with you. I think then the next point here is for everyone. I don't know who feels comfortable to answer, but I think the very important thing here is to make the business profitable and sustainable. I think here is the main challenge. And my question is, how can profit go along with positive impact in the world, to the world? These two things can be together. What do you think about it?
Ladies first.
Thank you, Carlos.
Go ahead.
I'm going to jump first saying that we have to start probably stop discussing the two things in separate. At this time, those two things are really coming in together. There are not necessarily any investment at this time that hurts the environment, doesn't necessarily have the ESG parameters, that is going to be a good investment. That's a reality. So when we start thinking on good investments, we need to start thinking that those good investments are good for the revenues that are coming specifically, but also they're following the ESG agenda that every country, every industry is facing themselves. I understand that we cannot close we cannot hire the sun with one hand. That's a reality. It's still a way to go, and we have still many steps that needs to be done. But when we start combining these two as one, I think we're in the right track.
If you, my colleagues, allow me, I will not resist, because you asked it is a false paradigm. ESG is costs, is not investment. By doing ESG, we are giving up profits. This is a false paradigm. This is totally wrong approach. I'm a risk manager by training, and I've been doing risk management, participating in investment committees for most of my life. Let's tell you what ESG means. Management of risks, intangible risks. By managing risks that are coming down the door, we have all sorts of risks coming from diversity, inclusion, social angle. By managing risks, you reduce the risk profile of your company. By reducing the risk profile of your company, magic, you're gonna raise funds cheaper than the others that are not doing so. Magic, by raising money cheaper, you're gonna increase the valuation of your business. Magic, suddenly by doing the right thing, by managing risks, you are protecting your brands, you are gaining customers, you are raising third-party money much cheaper, you get investors that have a long-term view investing with you, and then I give you the purpose of doing so as a nice cherry on the top of the cake. The purpose will come along as a consequence, because you are doing the right thing for your company management-wise. then it's a false paradigm. It's not a question of one thing or the other. It's just a question of good corporate practices, and that's the way that people should take a view on this.
I totally agree with you. I think the ESG is more opportunities than risks and then risk control and management. Totally agree. I don't know if José, Angelo or Igor want to add something more. If not, I can go to another note that I took. I said that bought a lot of. No? Okay, so I will move on for the next one, because we have a few minutes, still a few minutes. I think moving forward, economic instruments available for the agricultural sector, I would like to ask Igor, which other instruments can be used to access credit among, I don't know, CRA, CPR, green bonds that both of you mentioned on the presentations. So which one of that are good options for this sector, for agricultural sector? What do you think?
Yeah, as Carlos mentioned, green bonds have been issued in order to finance some of sugarcane producers and so on. But I think that if you look at the small rural producer and you look at ESG aspects as well, I think a good instrument that can be used in order to finance this sector would be CRAs, rural certificates, creative rights rural certificates, because it can provide funds to any kinds of rural producers. You don't need to be a great rural producer or a big player in order to issue any security that can be acquired by a securitization company and use it to make it the insurance of CRAs. And also, you asked me about other kinds of instruments, but I should say that also Fiagro could be used for it, because it allows, as an investment fund, it can buy any kind of rural types of credit rights, and it's a very interesting tool to finance the rural sector in any kind of crops that the rural sector does.
Okay, thank you, Igor. I think we have time to last one question, right, Carolina? And I will not address to any one of you. So who feels comfortable to answer, please go ahead. And my question is, if I am an investor in the audience here, and I got very interested in investing in agribusiness in Brazil, what can I do? Which are the first steps to enter here in the country and to invest in this sector? Do you have a very objective answer with the first steps related to those kind of to this kind of investment?
If it is in Minas Gerais, call me.
I'm actually going to intervene, and I'm going to invite for this question here, I'm going to invite Paulo de Araújo, who is doing your closing remarks and who is the agriculture attaché, to join us here now, because I think Paulo has probably the right answer for this question. So.
Okay.
Oh, that's a tricky question. First of all, thank you. I'd like to thank Carolina and Paulo de Castro for this wonderful event. We had an opportunity to look at many opportunities for investments in Brazil. It's not just production of food and agricultural projects. We can see by this event that there is a lot of technology involved in that, and there's a lot of opportunities for business, for Brazilian and Canadian companies, for building partnerships. Well, if you want to invest in Brazil, you have to go for the right partner. So I think you should go for the chambers of commerce, looking for partners. But we also have a department at the Ministry of Agriculture that promotes the investments on agricultural sector. So I will be very happy to build the bridges between any people interested in investing in Brazil and our ministry, so they can provide the support for investors, or through funds like the SP Ventures. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities depending on the scale, depending on the size, depending on what kind of investment you want to make.
Okay, thank you. I think, Carolina, now it's your time, because I had my answer. Thank you, Paulo.
Thank you so much. And thank you. I'd like to thank all the speakers here for joining us today. This was very informative, a lot of really good and interesting information. And I think it's really, I think that what I like, Rebeca, was that point in terms of ESG investment. And I feel like more and more, there's no investment if it's not sustainable investment, right? There's absolutely no way that the world would accept that. And I think Brazil, especially the agriculture sector, is in the right track. We're seeing more and more actions and opportunities, and the commitment from all levels of government, private sector, public sector, investors in really making this happen and making sure that the investments are sustainable. So I would like to, before last comments here before I invite Paulo for the closing remarks, so that José Angelo raised his hand. So
yes, I think it's important for the investors. We are willing to know the necessities, the demands of the investors. So I shared with you the link of the Climate Bonds Initiative website, where you can find the survey and answer these questions. We will be more acquainted with the necessities of the investors. But we would like to invite the investors to come here in Brazil and to see by yourselves, investors, what we can offer you. I think nothing will be better than this visit that we can provide you with this. And we are willing to receive you. If you want, you can use the chamber. Look, Carolina, I'm giving you more tasks than you already have, but you can arrange this trip, and we will receive you and show you there in the farms, in the environment where you will be investing in. So please, we are at your disposal. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you, José Angelo. I guess that we have a task. I'm going to ask Paulo de Castro. I don't know if he's still here, but we have a task here to organize a trade mission to Brazil and to show them the same way that the president of COP saw, especially I think that the integration of livestock, land and forestry is incredible. And there's a lot of good things happening in Brazil. So without further ado, I would like to invite Paulo. If you have some last words, Paulo, Márcio, if you have some last words to share with our audience before we finish here today.
Okay, no, just to thank everybody for being this event. It was an amazing event. We had an opportunity to learn a lot about all the possibilities we had. I have to praise this initiative that you're being, both chambers of commerce are building together. I have to thank you for investing in the agricultural sector. I mean, and I'm very happy that we're bringing building this partnership between all those those institutions. And I'm really glad to be here and have to, so just to say thank you. Everything has been said already in this event. And thanks Bonny for the support you give us at the embassy in Brazil, of Canada in Brazil. We were able to strengthen our partnership throughout this year. And I'm sure that we can build a lot of things together over the next year, so that we can finally achieve the potential of commerce and trade that both countries have together. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day of work. I have to go because I have another meeting right now. So I really apologize for this hurry, but I mean, it's good. It's busy days. It's because we have a lot of things going. So
a lot of work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you for the partnership, for helping us to put this event together. I'd like to thank again José, Angelo, Rebeca, Carlos, Igor, Ariadne, Bonny, Ambassador Borio, and of course the Ccbc and Paulo de Castro Reis for the partnership in putting this event together. I would also like to thank Marcelo Mendo, Luciano Souza from Cescon Barrieu as well for helping us to conceptualize this discussion. So it was always a pleasure to work with you guys. If anyone wants to learn more about the Fiagro investment funds or any other content that was shared here today, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to connect you with the speakers. And I'd like to take this opportunity as well to thank our sponsors, Vale, Export Development Canada, Cescon Barrieu, Landing Mining, Brookfield, and TSX and TSX Ventures for the partnership and for the support. I'd like to thank as well, of course, the Embassy of Brazil in Ottawa, as I mentioned, Ccbc, the Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canadá based in São Paulo, and the Embassy of Canada in Brasilia and the Trade Commissioner Service as well for the partnership. We've been working, I think that there's a lot of opportunities in the agriculture sector between Brazil and Canada, and we'll continue to work on discussions and events that will bridge those two countries even closer together. So thank you everyone who joined us here today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that you all stay safe and have a great end of the week. So thank you so much, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you.